This is maybe one of the biggest guitar cases I've ever had. I found this guitar just the other day, and I'm just super excited that it came in the original case and everything, but let me give you a quick glimpse here at what I'm going to be working on today. This is a 1990 Jackson Kelly. It's a Jackson Professional Series, so it's made in Japan. It's loaded up with all kinds of cool player wear, and it's got some mods like Seymour Duncan's and whatnot, but I'm really super excited to get started with this thing. Alright, well, this thing's out of the case. My first impressions are, you know, the same as when I bought it. This guitar is exceedingly dirty. Even if I wipe a paper towel across the case, it was picking up like just massive amounts of brown dirt. And I just did a quick wipe down of this thing, and it's no different. It's got like a film on the whole thing. The back of the neck is really stained, which is kind of cool in some ways, but it's a little bit more stained than I would like, and it's a little blotchy. So I think what I'm going to do is try to clean it just a little bit to even it out and make sure that it's nice and smooth. I've already taken the cover plates off. In fact, this cover plate wasn't even on here when I bought it. The wiring looks okay. Probably going to redo some of it just to make sure that it's okay. And somebody's added some Seymour Duncans in here, so those are cool. These springs for the Floyd don't quite fit. I'll have to see what's up with that. A little bit of rust on some of the components, especially the heads of the screws. There's a ding here. I think this is the only real ding I think I'm probably gonna address, because it does have one on each horn, which is kind of to be expected. The grime that's on the back of the neck, I can see it in the rosewood as well, so that's gotta be addressed. The frets need a polish. The humbucker ring in the front of the guitar is definitely not original, and it's angled down, so the humbucker is not sitting parallel to the strings, so I think I want to change that. This humbucker ring may be okay, we'll see. The Floyd, it's okay, but it's got a lot of wear. I'll see if I can just clean that up a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I think my first thing that I'm going to actually do, even before I get into any more deep cleaning, is check the neck relief and just see where it's at. Alright, well, I've been using some gauges, and I'm trying to figure out the neck radius. I think it's pretty close to a 16 down here, but up here it does seem to have a little bit more radius, so this may be a compound radius neck. I'm going to have to do some research on that. So let's check the neck radius itself, or sorry, the neck relief itself. So we got a capo on the first fret. The guitar is tuned to pitch, and I want to check I want to fret this at the neck to the body joint, which on this guitar, it's right between 17 and 18, so we'll go with 17. Alright, well, I've got at least 10. Alright, looks like it's right at about 12, so that's good. I don't think my neck's warped or anything. I think I'm okay to go ahead and start disassembling this thing, and just doing a whole bunch of cleanup, touch-ups, buffing, all kinds of stuff like that. Alright, strings are off. I think my next direction is going to be to take this thing apart into pieces. So next time you see this thing, the neck will be off the body, and I might actually have the pickups out. I'm going to do that first. I'll take the bridge out too. I think I'm going to do these touch-ups probably early on in this build. Alright, well, here's some of the reason I took this thing apart. I mean, look at the grime in here. There's like hair and stuff that's just stuck in there. There's even junk that's like settled into the neck pocket in the joint between the fretboard and the body, and actually in the joint between the neck and the body. And then I've got this nasty scratch. I've got this pickup ring I need to replace. This ding isn't too bad. I'm not sure if I'll deal with this one or not. It's pretty significant, and I've got one down here too. So probably just going to do this one, but we'll see. I think the electronics need a little bit of help. So that's mainly why I'm taking this thing apart, is just it needs so much cleaning. And then if you look at the neck, it looks to have had something rubbed on it, and you can feel it too. It's some kind of a oil or something that's been rubbed in there. I'll see what I can do on that. Maybe clean that up some. Definitely get some of the grime out of the rosewood. Well, my cleaning of the neck is coming along pretty well. I'm getting a lot of the staining off of the maple on the back. I can tell that someone has basically sanded off the finish of the neck here in the past, and I've just been using a combination of quadruple aught steel wool and denatured alcohol, and just scrubbing it as much as I can to try to get some of that black pattern off of there. And I think I may kind of go back in here and get a little bit more aggressive with it and go ahead and take all of that black out. And I'll probably end up doing some sort of a light refinish on here with some oil. Hopefully that takes care of it. But the fretboard is coming out much better than it was. I'm still working on it, but got a lot of brown goo off of there. It's really showing up in the paper towels when I clean it off. I also got the body stripped. I've got all the electronics out of it. Got basically down to the point where I have nothing in the way of me addressing this finish. So I'll be doing some buffing. There's a lot of haziness and pick marks going through here, and I'll be able to buff those out, and I'll be able to address these little chips here. I did also take the pickups out, and I thought I'd just talk about what they were really fast. So the bridge is a Seymour Duncan SH4, so that's a JB. That's the common name of that one. And the neck humbucker I did not expect, but this is actually an SH11, which is a custom. So it's funny, I mean, these are basically both bridge humbuckers. Kind of unique. And if you remember, I used a custom in the Telecaster baritone build, and I really love the sound of that thing, and I actually love it in the neck, so I think I may just leave that alone. Let's go ahead and finish the cleanup on these and get started with these repairs. So as I'll show you with some still photos, I cleaned out these holes to the point where they were down to the bare wood, and I cleaned up any wood fibers that were sticking up in the imperfections themselves. Then I drop filled all these with black Tester's gloss enamel and a toothpick. And once they were drop filled a couple of times so that they were smooth on the bottoms, then I filled the rest of the hole with super glue as sort of a clear coat layer. And now I'm going over these repairs with a razor blade that's been taped up on both ends and just has an exposed center, so that I can scrape across these repairs and not damage the finish around the repairs. I'll keep going until the repairs themselves are almost flush with the surface, and then I'll have to go back in here with some sandpaper. So I've got everything scraped flat with the razor blade, and I've been doing a little bit of sanding. This is a technique that I use that I call strip sanding, and it's just where you cut a thin piece of sandpaper, and in this case I'm using something really fine like 600 grit, and I'm just going over the tops of the slightly raised areas that were left from the scraping. And I'll put my finger right over the repair and put the sandpaper in between my finger and the repair spot and just pull. And I'm only using light pressure on my finger. And the point of this is to direct the sanding directly at that spot that I want to level out. And then I'll go back over the whole thing with the block later. But this allows me to only sand in the exact spot that I want to sand. And I'm just trying to make these little repairs blend in and disappear. When you strip sand, you want to make sure that you vary your angles just to make the repair a little bit more invisible when you're done. And because these are raised points, when you come at it from different angles, you're likely to get a much flatter repair in the end. I don't want to create a divot. I just want to level off the little high spots. My last step to try to blend in this repair is to go over it with a block with some 1200 sandpaper on it. And this is wet so that I get a low dust sort of situation here, and I don't have to wear a mask. I'm not doing it with enough water that it's going to actually seep into the wood too much, like in the screw holes. It's just enough to kind of let the block glide. And as I do this, I can see the scratches start to disappear around where I've been doing my scraping and stuff. But you'll notice if you look really closely, and I don't even know if you can see it right now, but it's very hard to get an exact match on black paint, and so you can still just barely see the little spots where I touched up because the blacks just don't exactly match, but they're really close. And by the time you put the humbucker ring and the knobs on, I think it'll all just be completely unnoticeable. So I've wet sanded the whole front of this guitar with 1200, and it's not perfect in the area that the repair was done, but I was able to get out a lot of other incidental scratches. And I think once I polish this, then this whiteness that you see here might disappear. It's just that the repair is just a little bit proud of the surface, and it's a little bit porous. I think that'll mostly disappear, and it'll be mostly hidden by a knob anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and do a quick polish of this. I've got some automotive polish that I use, and just a foam pad on a drill. I'll go through a couple different grades of polish. This is Grioche's, but you don't have to use you know, an expensive brand. It's just what I happen to have. But they make different grades for different levels of scratches. This one's for deep scratches, and I'll go up through the different grits for finer scratches and just polish the whole front. What I'll end up with ultimately, I usually end up with just a simple like Meguiar's Scratch X or something like that for the last stage. That leaves me with a real good shine. You can see, you know, most of the swirl marks are gone. I don't go for perfection on these, but it'll be a real nice shine when I'm done. Okay, well, I've got it mostly polished. There is still some evidence of repair here. I'm probably going to have to get in there with my hand and just kind of polish some of that out with my fingers. But other than that, I got all the incidental scratches and fine scratches out of the front. And a lot of the little dings came out too, just because it took a little bit of the finish off. But didn't burn through anywhere, so I'm really happy with it. I've got this neck fully sanded. It's still got a little bit of shadows and blotches in it, just from years of dirt and play. Basically what had happened was it had been sanded previously. Somebody played it for a long time with it sanded. All their dirt got ground into the neck, and now when I'm coming back in here and trying to sand it down, I'm worried about taking too much of the profile away by continuing to sand. So I cleaned it up as best I could. And now what I've gone back and done is I've gone back and put a couple of layers of tung oil down. It's just this this old bottle of Formby's that I've been using. I don't think they make this anymore, but Minwax probably makes an equivalent. I'm laying that down, and then in between coats I'm doing steel wool coverage, or steel wool brushing, so just kind of knocking down the high spots and the streaks. So I'll probably go through several coats of this. It's a lot of repetition, and it's a lot of put a layer down, smooth it out, and the layers are very, very thin just because of the way that finish works. When it gets done, it will feel like there's not much finish on there at all, and that's the beauty of the tung oil. I do need to get enough coats on there so that the lines, like where the transition between the two finishes is, that line is not so obvious, and even some of this out back here. The more yellowed it becomes, the better it's going to look. While I've been waiting on the neck to dry, I just reinstalled the pot and the switch, just screwed them back in place, and I've got the strap buttons back on. I'm just about to set the humbuckers in, so I thought I would show that. These aren't the original humbuckers, and the original humbuckers on this guitar are long gone. The Seymour Duncans that it had, I'm going to use on a different project, so I've got these Fleor humbuckers that are a pretty good approximation of what would have come in here originally, and I'm going to try installing these. So to do that, I've got some new humbucker rings, and the humbucker rings are not angled, and believe it or not, that was kind of hard to find. The humbucker rings, normally that you find are angled just a bit for the bridge and tailpiece guitars, like an SG or ones like that have the tailpiece up quite a bit higher, and sometimes the neck's even at an angle, and so they need that angle on that humbucker to get the angle correct on the pickup. But this one is completely flat, so I was happy to find that. It just took me a while, and All Parts happens to make a set that will work out just good, just great for me. So I'm going to install these, and you have to install them just like any other set, where the screws, the adjustable pole pieces, are going to be on the outsides of the two pickups. So they'll be on the top row on the neck pickup, and they'll be on the bottom row for the bridge pickup. It's a pretty tall ring. I think it's going to work out okay. It's definitely a little bit taller than the original. I'm going to go ahead and use it. So with the pickups in the front, I was able to finish up the wiring in the back. It's really difficult for me to show what I'm doing inside a cavity like this. It's even difficult for me to show you even after the fact. But basically, all the grounds kind of come in on the same side, and they attach to a ground lug that's on the side wall of the cavity. I assume that entire cavity is painted with shielded paint. I didn't test it with an ohm meter, but that wouldn't make sense unless that was true. And there's a ground lug in each one of the pickup cavities, so I'm almost positive it's true. But anyway, I have all those twisted up, run to a common lug, and grounded to the back of the volume pot. The volume pot is it's definitely original because it says 500K and it says made in Japan, like really big across the thing. So I don't know what style it is or what brand it is, but I'm sure it's original. I've got the two pickups coming in through their holes, and they ground to the ground lug on the switch. The switch also grounds to the back of the pot. Then I've got their signal wires coming into each side of the switch. Got a common wire from the middle of the switch going out to the volume pot. Got the jack wired in, and it's wired into the center lug of the volume pot plus the ground. And so, I mean, everything's in place and working together. I haven't tested anything out to make sure it all works. Oh, and there's a ground wire coming from this claw, obviously. But with that much grounding and no ground loops, I think this thing ought to be dead quiet. So we'll see when it gets plugged in and turned on. But I really think that these pickups are going to sound pretty good for at least for resale, and that's what the goal of this guitar is. All right, well, I've got my electronics in. My neck is, I'm still doing coats of oil and letting that dry, so I'm still working on that. But I think this is a good place to end the episode for today, and we'll make a part 2 showing the rest of the build. But anyway, I appreciate you guys watching, and as usual, if you like these videos, be sure to click the like button, leave a comment. Those things help me with my algorithm to make sure that other people get to see these videos. And so that you get to see the next episode, you want to make sure to subscribe. So thanks a lot, and I'll see you guys next time.